Auditor, paymaster, chief accounting officer, otherwise known as city controller. I'm delighted to be joined today by the LA City Controller, Kenneth Mejia. So nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, first thing I really want to know is you ran a grassroots effort to get this job. What was it about the controller's office that really intrigued you and you wanted to run and be in this position?
So the city controller is the accountant, the auditor, the paymaster. So my background is in accounting and auditing. I'm a certified public accountant. I'm our city's first. And I was looking at the history and saw that we never had a CPA before or an accountant or auditor. So I said, this is a perfect position for me. And with this position, you could really bring about transparency on finances, on city operations, on policies, because people want to know.
So part of all of this, you know, is transparency. And one of the things that you've talked about are maps. So what are some of the things that you have focused on? What are you hoping those maps will achieve?
So maps do provide a better visualization of data, especially from a geographic perspective. So some of the maps we've created are around homelessness, around public safety. Another map we made is our affordable housing map that shows where affordable housing covenants are. That has helped people find housing. And with these maps and these analysis, it also helps these districts understand how policies are affecting the population at hand. And so these maps are there to tell a story better than words can or a table can.
What have you learned since you've been in office?
Well, number one, I really love this job. People think government jobs might be boring, but I love it. I think this is the best job I've ever had. I get to do something that I love to do, and I get to help people. Number two, I think people who work in government have their heart in the right place. They want to do good. What I think and what I've learned on why that's not enough is there are times where bureaucracy or red tape or, oh, actually, you can't do that. We haven't done that before. Slows things down. And I think what we're trying to do is say, no, we have to be innovative. We are in an emergency right now. We have to figure out ways to tackle these issues, these problems. Because if every year we're gonna say the same thing, oh, this is just the way it is, this is how it is. And it's like, okay, well, if this is the way it is, then we're just gonna have people continue to be dying on our streets. We're gonna continue to have people being evicted, people being harassed, animals being stuffed in kennels with 4 other dogs. And that's the sad reality of it. And what I try to do is say, look, y'all, like, this is not working. Or it's working, but if this is the way you intended the system to work, then this is not good enough. And I think that's what I'm trying and our office is trying to work with in order to change that, right? What I hope and what we hope in our office is to inspire others to take up this, grab the mantle and continue this pathway of education, of transparency, of identifying what's wrong with the system and fixing the system that we live in. So that's our goal.
What are some of the general audits that take place during a fiscal year? You kind of ended up, in office for the last half of one fiscal, and now we're in another fiscal. What's the pattern of auditing, and who gets looked at, and is it annually? Is it?
It's a great question. So we just hired a performance auditor this week, and that adds our total to 7.
Woohoo!
And we have over 40 departments and bureaus and agencies, and it's not feasible or practical to audit and find what's working or what's not working with the amount of people that we got. And so when we pick what we want to audit, we pick with intention to make sure that it's something that people care about, that's something that is going to make a difference. And so, our audit teams, like I said, are almost 7 now, but each team makes up 2 to 3 auditors. So if you think about it, that's about 2 audits or 4 audits a year, depending on what you're auditing. And so for this fiscal year, we're working on finishing up our audit on public safety in regards to police helicopter usage, if they're efficient, if they're effective. We're also looking at our unarmed response programs to see how are they working, do they exist, are they not working. We're also doing audits. Our audit teams are working on homelessness related issues, so pathways into permanent housing, and as well as also looking at interim housing if data collection is there, are shelter beds available, how are we getting that data, and pretty much those are the 2 big ones right now. So I wish we can have an auditor for every department, because audits are not bad thing. They are there to help the departments figure out, well, what are we lacking on? What controls are missing that are leading to inefficiencies or ineffectiveness or fraud or something, you know, that's happening that should be caught. And audits can either find those things and help the city and the taxpayers, or they could reaffirm to people that, you know, we did our audit and everything's working perfectly. You know, we'll visit again in 4 years. And you know, I really feel that our audit teams can really shed a light on finding inefficiencies and what's ineffective for our government and for taxpayers. So,
do you think that these kinds of reports can actually change where things lie on the priority list?
Oh, definitely. You know, our report is used when we're talking about, well, what does the department need, or what policies should we look into, or what studies should we do?
Renovations.
Right, renovations, or how do we get animals to be spayed and neutered? Pretty much, you know, we feel that the work that we do in the controller's office is to provide a spotlight on what's working, what's not working, and then give that to the public and the policymakers to make the systemic change. And what we're good at is we're good at bringing that to light and causing attention.
And then also another subject that's been, you know, near and dear to your heart, as well as near and dear to a lot of people, is, you know, the issue with the animal shelters.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what have you learned about the animal shelters and what's going on there? Because I know that's been...
Yeah. So earlier this year, our director of special projects, Vincent, released a transparency report. It's about 80 pages that details shelter operations, what they do, the population of animals, the amount of kennel space that we have. We're finding that the way the city is operating around animal welfare is it's underperforming. And there are a number of reasons, right? Over the past decade or so, the Animal Services Department's budget has either been stagnant or low. Luckily, this year, they did get a 20% increase in their operational budget, but it's still not enough. We have a $13 billion budget, and when you look at the stats and the reports, you could see that it's getting worse and worse and worse. The South LA shelter, for example, that shelter needs the most help. It has over 400 dogs and about 243 kennels.
Oh
so
God.
If you think about it, there are these large, most of the shelter dogs are large animals. So you have these kennels that are not that big, and you have them doubling or tripling up. It could lead to fights. It can deteriorate the health of the animals, so it makes it harder for them to be adopted. Also, many of our shelters are outside, so during the summer heat or when it's cold, they're exposed to the elements. We also saw too that there are not enough staff. Sometimes it's less than 10 animal care techs working, and you have shelters that have over 300 animals. And budgeting and funding is just one issue, but I do believe that this needs to be taken up more seriously by all of our elected officials, because we all have the power to make change and make it an emergency. And that's what we'd like to do for all 40 departments, is have this monthly updates on how animal welfare or whatever the department's doing, to give people an idea of how we're operating.
Are you completely enamored with, you know, the realm of public service? I mean, is this something that you want to continue with?
I really enjoy being the city controller. There are so many people who have been inspired and they want to do more for their community just because of what we're doing. What I hope and what we hope in our office is to inspire others to take up this, you know, grab the mantle and continue this pathway of education, of transparency, of identifying what's wrong with the system, and fixing the system that we live in. So that's our goal.
So needless to say, I'm sure anyone who's watching is very intrigued and wants to find out, you know, where all of this information, all of these maps, all of these audits, all of these videos, all of this, you know, newsletters and listening sessions are happening. How can they find out?
Controller.lacity.gov.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been truly, unequivocally fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.